Hello there, kia ora. Despite Hastings District Council having 5 unopposed elections this term, Hobson's pledge hasn't posted about how that's unfair on voters, like the one Māori councillor elected unopposed to the Waikato Regional Council. Weird, right? Anyway, Hastings District Council, like a number of councils in the area, are in the unenviable position of still dealing with the fallout to Cyclone Gabriel and a number of other weather events. And when major events like that have a huge impact on infrastructure, and how infrastructure now needs to be planned for with more resilience into the future, and how infrastructure costs have gone up over 60% in the past 6 years, that does become a huge strain on the finances, even with some central government help along the way, which means financial restraint becomes the watchword for the election, with the potential loss of what connects communities and people, and an influx of candidates who think that a rates cap is the solution. But that doesn't stop some red flags being waved for me in that area around rates caps in particular, because, well, that's a promise that's going to compound issues more than anything else. So, quick disclaimer here, these are my red flags, which means that they're not going to be red flags for everyone, which is why you really still should go out and research all of your candidates and see which ones share your goals and views, and most importantly, none of that is going to matter if you don't vote in this year's local body election. So make sure your details are all up to date, and even if they're not, you can update them and still cast a special vote. Let's take a quick look at emergency responses. Last year, the government actually agreed to overhaul the emergency management system based on 14 high-level recommendations from a report into 3 specific events that all impacted Hastings. And these changes for councils will require a minimum standard of emergency management put in place, because councils are quite often the first responders to the impacts of events like this. And when new regulation is put in place like this, LGNZ is the exact sort of organisation that steps in and helps multiple councils work through and identify, then plan and implement the sort of changes that other councils can then use to create their plans, working on a blueprint of sorts. So the usual dog whistle of needing to leave the left-leaning gravy train LGNZ is one that could have a direct impact to Hastings District Council. And that's the call coming from Steve Gibson, who's running for the mayoralty. On top of that, he's promoting the taxpayer union rates cap plan, which limits a council's ability to raise revenue, which is an area that they really need to be able to do so when they're constantly dealing with weather events that they get hit by and need to build resilience into future planning. I'll go into that one a little bit later. In the Mohaka General Ward, there's Derek Nawal Ustiki, who doesn't have a huge online footprint but is a passive member of challenging councils and goes in for the faux rage bait on road cones. Oh my god, there's a road cone! Look out behind you! And he's teamed up with Hastings Havelock General Ward candidate Jacqueline Supra to form CARE, Citizens Against Rates Excesses. Their group's talking points mirror those of the ACT Party and aligned AstroTurf groups. Catchphrases like getting back to basics and focus on infrastructure, as well as selling assets, removing unnecessary bureaucracy, and implementing more free market solutions. And Jacqueline's also promoted ACT Party events in the past. Then rounding out the Hastings Havelock Ward is Lucy Jane McElwee. She's a big fan of a bad idea. The core of her campaign is about rates caps tied to CPI. Even the Taxpayers Union, Jordan Williams, supports her in this campaign promise. And I get why people might think a rates cap sounds like a good idea. Some places have had massive increases and it stings. But council costs grow faster than the CPI, which is a measure of average household costs, not council inputs. And the largest expense areas for councils are infrastructure. Their costs have been rising faster than general inflation. Capping rates will mean councils will fall behind in maintaining assets, which leads to their deterioration and then higher future repair bills, which is what a lot of councils are dealing with at the moment. But that then leads to services needing to be cut, which undermines the statutory responsibilities councils have under the Local Government Act. And if rates are capped with a limited income with rising costs, then deferring maintenance and services or borrowing then suddenly become the only 2 possible options, because when the government was asked to look at other alternatives, Simeon Brown threw it out saying it was woke. But this creates inflationary pressure down the line, since deferred work costs more. Also, CPI is a national index, but there's regional variations in council costs, and Hastings is a perfect example of this. It's like having a pile of washing to fold and not doing it. So the pile just gets bigger and bigger, and then being told that you can only fold half a load of washing every time you put it through the cycle. You're artificially decreasing the workload and creating problems that will take more to sort out later. And that's an example that's not totally based on what's going on in my lounge right now. But the answer to sell off assets to offset this leaves councils without revenue streams and the public without assets, or assets leased back to council. You might as well sell your garage to paint your house, then lease back the garage because it's still attached to the building. So it's always a good idea for voters to be aware of the long-term downside to the short-term sugar hit being offered by some candidates in any election. Voting is done by postal ballot this year, with voting forms being sent out around September 9. Hastings District Council is using first past the post, so you need to tick the candidates that you like, and the future of Māori wards is on the ballot here. You can find more information about your local elections on your council website, or you can visit my website, alltheotherone.com/LG25, to find a whole bunch of other local government resources. Hey, thanks for checking out today's video. Make sure you like, share, subscribe so you get more updates as we go along. We deal with these guys for the rest of the year.